Good evening, everybody, and welcome to MBRT's virtual financial aid night for college. We're going to try and figure out all the ways we can find money for college. I'm Laurie Bell. I'm the coordinator at Cambridge South Dorchester High School, and I have Morgan Cox with me, the coordinator for North Caroline and Colonel Richardson High Schools with us as well. We do have a special guest that I will introduce in just a moment. As we are going through our presentation this evening, if you have any questions, please place them in the chat. We will do our best to answer them. If we don't get them answered tonight, we will definitely get back to you with an answer. We know how important all of this information is. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Laura Shahan. She is the Assistant Director of Financial Aid at Chesapeake College. And every time I listen to her presentation, I learn something new. So I hope that she can answer some questions for you today. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's nice to kind of sort of see everybody. For those of you that do have your camera on, I am going to be sharing my screen. So unfortunately, I won't be able to see anybody after that. But like Ms. Bell said, if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat box, and we can certainly answer them afterwards. Or if you feel comfortable enough asking your question out loud afterwards, that's fine. And my contact information will be given at the end of the presentation as well. So feel free to email me at any time with any questions that you have. If you think of something later on down the road, or if you're laying in bed at 2 o'clock this morning and you can't sleep and you need to ask me a question, feel free to shoot me an email as well. But I can certainly stay afterwards after this presentation too, and talk to you guys about any questions that you may have. So as Ms. Bell mentioned, this presentation is all going to be about financial aid options for you to go to college, okay? And this isn't necessarily about Chesapeake College. Yes, I'm the assistant director at Chesapeake, but we are talking about financial aid for all colleges, no matter if you are going to be coming to me, which I would love, or if you're going to be going elsewhere. We're going to be talking about the financial aid options available for you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if someone will just give me access to do that. You're muted, Ms. Bell. There you go.
It doesn't say that I need to give access. We didn't test that out ahead of time, did we?
No, it just says host disabled, participant screen sharing. There we go. Thank you. Right. And then we good?
Beautiful.
Great. Awesome. All right. So this is, like I mentioned, everything that you need to know about financial aid, no matter what college you're going to be attending. I will say our agenda is jam-packed. This is a pretty lengthy presentation because it's so detail-oriented. So again, if you do have questions along the way, feel free to ask them. I'm expecting questions, so feel free to ask them at any time. Some things that we're going to be going over tonight is we're actually going to be defining what financial aid means. When you hear that word, there's a lot of myths behind the word financial aid. So we're going to be breaking that down and actually talking about that. You're going to learn in the financial aid world, there's a lot of acronyms: COA, EFC, FAFSA. We're going to break each one of those acronyms down. We're going to define each one of those acronyms, and meaning cost of attendance means COA, or EFC is expected family contribution. So that way, when you're having the conversations with your financial aid offices on campus, and they say your COA is, you know the language that we're speaking, so that way you're more informed about the financial aid process. We're going to talk about financial need and what it means to have financial need. Then we're going to talk about where all the money comes from. Where is it all coming from, and where can you apply for it? Then we're going to kind of flip the script at the end, and we're going to actually talk about the FAFSA. We are not completing FAFSA applications tonight, but what we are going to do is we're going to talk about the application. We're going to point out some tips and tricks, some errors that you guys are making on the FAFSA, So make sure you stay with me towards the end. So that way you know exactly how to answer certain questions that can be a little tricky on the FAFSA. And then we're also going to talk about some special circumstances just in case your family does have those. So first, what is financial aid? Financial aid is anything that helps the student pay for their higher education. So any type of funding source that helps that student pay for any higher education expenses is exactly what financial aid is. Financial aid is scholarships, loans, grants, third-party billing, private scholarships, etc. Okay, so it's any funding source. So I hear a lot of students say, did my loan come in and did my financial aid come in? Loans are financial aid. Scholarships are financial aid. Grants are financial aid. So when you think about the word financial aid, there's a lot of different components that go into that definition of financial aid. A lot of different resources of financial aid that could be available to you to help you pay for your higher education. But there's really one important thing that we at your colleges have to determine in order for us to figure out how much financial aid you're eligible for. And that is what your financial need is. And there's a formula that we at your colleges are going to use in order to determine what your financial need is. First, in that formula, we have to determine what your cost of attendance is, also known as your COA. Cost of attendance, every college has to have it. It's mandated by the Department of Education. But each of our costs of attendance is going to be drastically different because each of us are going to have different direct costs and indirect costs. Direct costs are things you have to go to college, right? Tuition fees, room, board, and books, okay? And then indirect costs, these are things that might be miscellaneous expenses, transportation, personal expenses. It could also be program fees. So for example, if you are in an allied health program, let's just say nursing, for example, that program could have higher costs, indirect costs in forms of fees than what maybe another program does, okay? So again, every cost of attendance is going to be different at every college. My cost of attendance is going to be drastically different than Washington College's, than Salisbury's, than Towson's, than Bowie's, etc. But it's important to know what the cost of attendance is at each college you're thinking about attending, because that is one of the things that we at your college are going to use to determine how much financial need you have. The second thing we're going to use is what your EFC is, your expected family contribution. This number comes directly from the information you put into the FAFSA application each year. The FAFSA application is going to ask for a variety of different information: income information, number of family members in college, as well as some asset information in most cases. Your EFC does not change no matter what college you go to because it's coming directly from the FAFSA application. So your cost of attendance is going to change, but your EFC, the number you get from the FAFSA, is not going to change. But again, it's important to know what your EFC is because that's the second part in determining how much financial need you have at your college. So here's the formula that we're going to use. We're going to take your cost of attendance minus your EFC to determine your financial need. So let's give you an example here that you can see on the screen. Cost of attendance at college ABC is $10,500. You fill out your FAFSA and you get an EFC of $2,500. Your need at that college is $8,000. Now remember, because I said cost of attendance changes at each college, your need is going to change at each college because that cost of attendance number can change. So again, when you talk to your financial aid offices and you hear them say you have financial need, or you may go to another financial aid office and hear them say you don't have financial need. This is why, because they're taking your cost of attendance, minusing out your EFC to determine your financial need. Now, we at your college and you as a student, your goal is to be able to get the need as low as possible because that means your cost of attendance is being met. So how do we lower that need? How do we meet your cost of attendance? Well, we fill it with financial aid resources. All right. So how do we do that? Where does all the money come from and what types of financial aid are available? Gift aid and self-help aid are the two types of financial aid available to students. Students, the gift aid is the money you want. That's the free money. It comes in forms of grants and scholarships. Now, grants do not have to be paid back. Again, they're a free funding source. However, most of the time they're awarded off of financial need. Now, scholarships, another free source of funding to help pay for your higher education. However, most of the time, scholarships are awarded off of what's called merit. So what does that mean? That means, what are you students like as a high school student? What's your GPA? What county do you live in? What's your major? What extracurricular activities have you been involved in inside of school as well as outside of school? What does your resume look like? Or your essay, your letters of recommendation? These are the things that scholarship applications are going to ask for. All right. Now, some scholarship applications may say you must have financial need, but most of the time, scholarships are just going to look at you as a student. All right. But again, you want to apply for all types of scholarships because, again, it's a free funding source for you to help pay for your higher education. And we're going to talk about scholarships and grants a little bit more in detail in just a few minutes. Now, self-help aid. Self-help aid, one, can come in forms of loans. Loans are a great way for the student to pay for their higher education and earn kind of an investment in the future and kind of build their credit. However, it kind of goes without saying, but unfortunately we do have to say it. You need to be careful with what you're borrowing. Okay, you do have to pay back what you borrow. Now, your financial aid office at the college you're going to be attending could possibly award you the loan amount that you're eligible for, but that doesn't mean you may need that amount of loans. Could you lower your loan amount by applying for another scholarship, free money, to be able to get that loan amount lower so you don't have to pay back so much? Could you apply for another grant source? Okay, so you have to think about that. You have to be very, very careful with loans. And another self-help aid is the work study program. And we're going to talk about this one in just a few seconds, but it's a way for the student to pay for their higher education by working either on campus or off campus, just like a normal employee would at a very part-time job. And I'm going to talk about this, and like I said, in a little bit more in detail, in just a few seconds. So where does all the money come from? The federal government has money to give to the students. The state of Maryland has money to award as well. Your college that you're thinking about attending has funding sources available for you. And then private sources and civic organizations. And we're really going to talk about this one in detail tonight because this is the largest source of funding that goes unawarded every single year, simply because students are not applying for them. So we're really going to make sure that you students that are on this call tonight are not those students. And then we're going to talk about how maybe your employer could help you out with financial aid resources. Let's talk about the federal government first. It is the largest source of financial aid available to students through the Department of Education. You do have to have financial need for most of the grant and loan programs that the Department of Education has. And you must fill out the FAFSA each year in order to be considered for any federal grants or loan programs that the Department of Education has to award students. Now, I will tell you that any number figures that you see in this presentation are current 2021, 2022 figures. Seniors that are listening, these are not your figures. You are 2022, 2023. Unfortunately, the federal government as well as the state government have not balanced their budgets yet. So we can't give you 22, 23 figures. Those numbers will be available later on towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. And I'll give you the resources that where you'll be able to find that information. But again, I like to give you this information just to kind of give you an idea, but please don't write these down in pen. They will change. The Department of Education has a variety of grant and loan programs to award students. I'm going to give you a high-level overview of each one of them, and you are more than welcome to dive into more on the Department of Education's website at studentaid.gov. The Federal Pell Grant Program is the largest grant funding available that the Department of Education has to award students. This year, your EFC had to be less than 5846 in order to be eligible for the Federal Pell Grant Program. And the maximum amount of Pell that a student could receive was $6,495 as a full-time student for the entire academic year. The Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, also known as SEOG, another acronym out there. You do have to be Pell Grant eligible. Right now, the maximum award is $4,000. Here's something to note about SEOG. This fund is given in allocations to each college from the Department of Education. So essentially, we all kind of get a pot of money. This pot of money normally is awarded off of a first come, first served basis. And once we run out, we run out. It is gone. You students, your homework tonight is to check with each of the colleges that you are going to be attending. Ask them what their FAFSA filing priority deadline is, because you want to make sure that if you get your FAFSA into them and you're eligible for SEOG, that you're going to be awarded it. I always tell students money and deadlines go hand in hand. You miss out on a deadline and you can miss out on a large source of funding. So please make sure you know what your deadlines are so you can be awarded the maximum amount of funding available to you. The TEACH grant. TEACH is for students who intend to teach full-time, high-need subject areas to low-income families for at least 4 years. This starts out as a grant. However, it is a service obligation grant. Therefore, if you do not meet the service obligation listed there, it will turn into a loan and you have to pay it back. Iraq and Afghanistan, if you're not eligible for the Federal Pell Grant Program and you had a parent or guardian killed in the line of duty in any of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, you could be eligible for that grant. The Federal Work Study Program, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, this is a fantastic way for students to help pay for their higher education by working a very part-time job. They're not working 40 hours a week. They're working part-time in between their class schedules, maybe on Fridays, maybe on weekends. And they're getting a paycheck just like a normal employee would. Or at some colleges, instead of giving a paycheck, the student will work and that earnings will be reduced off their room and board balance. To give you an example, at Chesapeake College, I was actually a work-study student. When I graduated from high school, I went to Chesapeake, and I was a work-study student in the financial aid office. We have work-study students in my office. We have work-study students over in our library and our tutoring center. We have students in our cafeteria. I've even had students out cutting grass and maintaining our flower beds. Our athletes normally work over in our athletic center, just to kind of give you an idea of the different type of jobs that could be on campus. I can't speak for other colleges, but this is also a fantastic resume builder for your student because it is a job. They're learning job skills by working and earning a paycheck to help with their higher education expenses. You can sign up for the Federal Work Study Program by on the FAFSA, it's going to ask, are you interested in federal work study? Yes, no, or I don't know. I highly suggest everyone says yes to this because again, this is another fund that once we're given a lot allocation, and normally it's awarded off of a first come, first served basis. And once that allocation is gone, And a lot of students come to us halfway through the semester saying, I'm broke, I need a job, mom and dad won't send me any more money. And guess what? They're looking for work study money. And I normally have awarded it by the middle of the semester. So students, Always apply for it. If you don't need it, you can always deny it later. Okay. And then the 2 loan programs that the Department of Education has to award students. The federal direct loan programs, that's through the student themselves. Right now, it's a fixed rate at a 3.73%. And the plus loan, parents, that's for you. The Parent Plus loan is based off of your credit. Right now, it's a fixed rate at 6.28%. Again, I've given you a high level overview of all of the grant programs and loan programs that the Department of Education has to award students. Please go on studentaid.gov. That's the Department of Education's website to learn more about all of the programs in much more detail than what I can get into tonight. And then on that website, once the 22-23 figures have been determined, they will be posted on that website as well. Maryland State Scholarships. As I mentioned earlier, the state of Maryland has money to award students that are interested in going to Maryland colleges. So normally in the presentation, when I'm face-to-face with somebody, I normally, kind of talk to the student and say, hey, are you interested in staying in state or out of state? 9 times out of 10, I hear students want to go out of state. And I get it. You want to get out of Maryland. You want to get out of Dorchester County, Queen Anne's County, Caroline County, wherever you are. I totally understand that. However, if you go out of state, you're not eligible for any Maryland state scholarships. There's an exception of a few, which we'll talk about those. But for the majority of these, you have to be attending a school in Maryland. So students, it pays to stay in the state of Maryland. So let's talk about some of the Maryland state scholarships and how you can apply for them. You do have to fill out the FAFSA each year. Our Maryland state scholarships are both merit and need based. And if you don't write anything else down tonight, if you don't put anything else in your phone, anything else that you take away from this presentation tonight, please take away this. This Maryland deadline that you see listed here, March 1st. You must have your FAFSA completed by March 1st each year in order to be considered for Maryland state scholarships. That March 1st is a hard deadline, which means if it falls on a Saturday or Sunday, it doesn't matter. You have to have the FAFSA electronically submitted by March 1st to be considered for any Maryland state scholarship program. You're going to hear me reference that March 1st deadline throughout this presentation because it's so extremely important. I've also listed down here the MHEC's website, so you can go on and find out a lot more detail about all of the programs. I'm only going to talk about a few of the big programs that we hear our students are awarded. One of the biggest need-based programs is educational assistance. You fill out the FAFSA by March 1st. You have to demonstrate need at the college you're going to be attending. You must be a full-time student at either a 2-year or 4-year college in the state of Maryland. All you have to do is complete your FAFSA by March 1st in order to be considered for educational assistance. There's no additional forms you have to fill out. There's no additional deadlines you have to meet. Fill out your FAFSA by March 1st, and you will automatically be considered for educational assistance as long as you meet the eligibility requirements. Guaranteed access. This grant right now is about $19,000 a year. It is awarded on merit and need. So the need income limit changes each year, so I cannot state what it is for 22-23 right now. But the merit part is you must have at least a 2.5 GPA at the end of your first semester of your senior year in high school. So whatever, if you're in first semester right now, your end of your first end of this semester, you must have at least a 2.5 GPA in order to be considered for guaranteed access. You do also have to complete additional documentation and submit additional documentation to MHEC by April. 1st. So the FAFSA has to be done by March 1st, and then you must also submit additional documentation by April 1st. You have to complete a college prep program. You do have to have a high school diploma. Students with a GED are not eligible. And you do have to have either as a full-time student at either a 2-year or a 4-year college. The 2+2 transfer scholarship. So for those students that are thinking, you know what, I just don't think I'm academically ready or financially ready or emotionally ready or physically ready for a 4-year college, right when I get out of high school. I'm thinking about going to Chesapeake first and then transferring out to a 4-year college in Maryland. That's great. There's a 2+2 transfer scholarship for you. So for those students that are thinking about doing that, let's talk about the 2+2 transfer scholarship, because it's a great way for you to get money at your 4-year college. What'll happen is you'll come to Chesapeake first, you'll earn your associate's degree, you'll still fill out the FAFSA every year, as well as additional applications with MHEC. And then once you have your associate's degree with at least a 2.5 within that program, then when you transfer to your 4-year college, that's where you're going to be awarded the 2+2 transfer scholarship. Depending on your major will depend on your award amount. So again, if you're thinking about coming to Chesapeake first, then transferring out, let's talk about more in detail about the 2+2 transfer scholarship and how that can help you. Senators and delegate scholarships. Senators and delegates are a great way for their student to pay for their higher education. It can be awarded to high school seniors, which are you guys, but maybe parents that are in the audience. Maybe you are thinking about going back to college, or maybe you have siblings or other children, at home that are thinking about going back to college. They can also apply for senators and delegates as well. They pretty much mirror each other when it comes to how they're awarded. You do have to fill out the FAFSA every year. You do have to demonstrate financial need. And most of the senators and delegates are going to have separate applications outside of the FAFSA. So you have to fill out the FAFSA, but then you're also going to have additional applications that you are going to need to complete. Your senator, as well as all of your delegates, and yes, you are to apply to all of your delegates in your area. Please don't think that you can only apply to one. Are going to have separate applications. They are going to contact your college. Oh, somebody, Miss King, I think. Hold on, Miss. Okay, sorry. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. Your senators and delegates, sorry, they are going to have separate applications. They are going to contact your guidance counselors at the high schools that you are attending, and the guidance counselors will be able to get you out those applications. It is your responsibility to check with your guidance counselors at each of your high schools to determine how they announce scholarships to you. Do they put it out on your student portal, such as Naviance? Do they send you emails? Do they have a bulletin board outside of your, their office? Are they going to mail them to you? Are they going to put them in a newsletter, etc.? Please make sure you know how this information is being shared with you so you don't miss out on those funding opportunities. Unique major. If you are a student that is considering going to an out-of-state college, because no college in the state of Maryland offers your program, okay? So I'll say that again. If you are going to an out-of-state college only because no school in the state of Maryland offers your major, you have the opportunity to take your senators and delegate scholarships with you to that out-of-state institution. You will still be charged out-of-state tuition. You are not able to take any other Maryland state scholarships with you, but you could take senators and delegates with you through the unique major scholarship. So check out MHEC's website if you are interested in that program. Now, the Promise Scholarship. A lot of students have heard about this, or a lot of students have heard about Governor Hogan said that community colleges are free. Unfortunately, that's not really what he meant. What he meant was that we have a Promise Scholarship available to students. Community colleges are not free, but we have a funding resource that can help students at a community college. So here's how Promise works. You fill out your FAFSA by every year by March 1st. There is a GPA, a merit component built into Promise. You'll see it listed here. There's also going to be a need component built into it as well. Every year it changes. So again, that's not posted for 22-23 yet. You do enroll at Chesapeake College as a full-time student. You complete either an associate's degree while you're with us, or maybe you're interested in a certificate. That's perfectly fine. You can still be eligible for Promise. And then Promise is awarded off of what we call a last dollar award, which means you must be considered for all federal grants, Maryland state scholarships outside of Promise. And then if there are any outstanding tuition and fee balance after all your federal grants have gone toward your bill, as well as all of your Maryland state scholarships have gone toward your bill, then Promise will be awarded to you. So to give you an example, and I'm making up numbers for easy math, let's say you come to Chesapeake and your bill for the fall 2022 semester is $2,000. You get a Pell Grant of $1,000 and you get another Maryland state scholarship of $500, which means you have an out-of-pocket expense of another $500. Promise will pay the $500. Okay, Promise does not pay for books. You would need other funding resources for that. But again, Promise is a great opportunity for students who might have a slight out-of-pocket expense, and Promise will kind of come in and pick up that bill for you. There's a lot more information on MHEC's website, which you can see down here. If you have any questions about Maryland State scholarships or any of, in particular, the Promise Scholarship, feel free to ask me at any time. Not sure. There we go. Career-based programs and service obligation programs. I'm not going into these tonight in detail, but you can research these on your own on MHEC's website. We do have a lot of students that receive the Riley Scholarship or Workforce Shortage Grant Program. If you're interested in going into a field such as nursing, childcare, education, social work, physical therapy, occupational therapy, etc., there could be a Workforce Shortage Grant Program available for you. And then the Conroy Scholarship and Veterans of Afghanistan and Iraq Scholarship are for students that may have lost a parent in the line of duty in any of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, or if that parent was injured either 100% as a disabled in any of our public service sectors. So think about Maryland State Police, our local fire, our local police, etc. There's a scholarship program available for you. And any student who identifies as a foster care recipient, unaccompanied homeless youth, or student with disabilities, there is a scholarship, a tuition waiver available for those students as well. Academic Common Market. So for those students, again, that are thinking about maybe going to an out-of-state college because no college in the state of Maryland offers your program. If you are one of those students and you are thinking about going to one of these states, now not all states, all colleges in these states participate in the Academic Common Market program, but you could have an opportunity to receive in-state tuition at one of those colleges that do participate. You will not take any Maryland state scholarships with you to that out-of-state college, but you would receive in-state tuition. there are very strict deadlines. There are a lot of applications and there's a lot of things that have to be, approved before this can happen. So I encourage you to go on MHEC's website, check out all the colleges that participate in Academic Common Market, as well as all the programs that are available through Academic Common Market to see if you would qualify for this program. And near completers, as I wrap up Maryland State scholarships. Now, the students, seniors, this is not for you, okay? You're not identified as a near completer, but I always throw this slide in my presentation because I know I have parents in my audience, and parents, maybe you are a near completer, or maybe you have a child of home that is thinking about going back to college, and because they're a near completer, they could be eligible. So again, seniors, this is not for you, but parents, if you have at least 45 credits at a community college or 90 credits at a four-year college, you could have up to 1/3 of your in-county tuition received in a scholarship through the near completer program, because we want you to come back and complete. Again, MHEC's website has all of the information. I just kind of throw that out there for anybody that could be interested in that program. Now, I've talked a lot of numbers, okay? And I've talked about a lot of different programs, but what's it look like? What do the numbers look like when you sit down and kind of calculate it? I've talked about how you can apply for a Pell Grant and state scholarships, et cetera. But when you really sit down and you crunch the numbers, here's what it could look like. What I've done here is I've listed Towson and Salisbury, the top two colleges that we hear a lot of students like to go to, or maybe even transfer to, and then I listed us. Please know, again, these figures are 2021, 2022 figures. They will change for 22, 23. I've given you here in these first two columns, cost of attendance, tuition fees, room, board, and books. Okay, remember those direct costs, things we have to go to college. When you fill out your FAFSA, you get an EFC of 1501. You'll see that down here in this corner. Here's what your financial aid package could look like based off an EFC of 1501. You would get a Pell Grant of $4,945 at each college. You got your FAFSA done on time, so you got SEOG. You are going to a Maryland college, so you got some Maryland State scholarships. And let's just say you filled out the local Lions Club scholarship, so you got a private scholarship there. You had to take out a loan at Towson and Salisbury of $3,500. Chesapeake does not participate in the federal loan program. So I will not be awarding your student any loans and keep them out of debt before they go off to that four-year college. You still had, with all this money, you still have an out-of-pocket expense in Towson for 1 year of over $12,000. Salisbury over $11,000, and I'm in the negative. So normally this is where I ask students, hey students, what does that mean? So I'll answer it for you. That means I'm giving you money back. So this is kind of where I do get to talk about Chesapeake a little bit. Students, think about this. Your first year, maybe even 2 years at Towson, at Salisbury, at Howard, at Bowie, at UMES, at Frostburg, at Allegheny. I don't know. I don't know where you guys are thinking about going, maybe even out of state. You're taking Englishes and maths and communications and sociologies and sciences and all what we call general education classes. You have to take them no matter where you go. Do you want to take them out of an out-of-pocket expense of $12,000 for an English class? Or do you think you could come to Chesapeake a little first, save a little bit of money, then transfer out? Just think about that. But I'm not here again tonight, and this wasn't about Chesapeake. This is about helping you go to that college wherever you're thinking about attending. You want to go to Towson? I want you to go to Towson. You want to go to UMES? I want you to go to UMES. I really don't want you, though, paying that out-of-pocket expense, and I really don't think you or your family would either. So we've talked about federal aid and we've talked about state aid, but we haven't talked about all of the different financial aid resources available for you to help you lower that out-of-pocket expense. So let's talk about where there's more money hiding for you to help you pay for your higher education. Your college that you're thinking about attending has money to award you. And a lot of students think, oh, I'll just go to the financial aid office. Yes, you certainly come to us. We are your money girls or guys. However, your admissions office, especially at your four-year college, has money to award you. You need to check with the admissions office about what their scholarship application program is like. Yes, please check with the financial aid office as well, but please also think about other departments on campus that could have scholarship funding available to you, especially departments such as the admissions office. Now, this is the largest source of funding that I talked to you about earlier that goes unawarded every year. So I'm really going to talk about this a little bit more in detail tonight. So please take notes. Private sources and civic organizations have money to award you students, but you are not applying for them. So please don't be that student this year. Apply for everything. And here's how you're going to do that. You are going to do a lot of research on your own. Think about all of the civic organizations or private sources that you, your parents, your grandparents, maybe even aunts and uncles are involved in. They all have funding sources available for you, but you have to apply to them. Your church is not going to come up to you and say, hey, I heard you're going to Towson. Here's some money. You have to go to your church and say, hey, I'm going to Towson. Do you have a scholarship program? You have to do the research. Your guidance counselor are also going to know about the civic organizations that have applications available, because they are the ones that are going to be getting the applications from the civic organizations. So the Lions clubs and the book clubs and the garden clubs and the Rotaries and the 4-H's and the FFAs and all of the organizations that have money to give are going to reach out to your guidance counselors and say, hey, can you please announce my scholarship application to your seniors? Seniors, you need to talk with your guidance counselor to figure out when and how those applications are announced. And then you need to apply to them. Think about Lions clubs or Rotaries, all right? Sports organizations, anything and everything you guys are involved in. We're busy. We're in a lot of things. They all have money to give, but you have to apply. And every little dollar amount adds up, right? So a lot of students think, oh, that's just $200. I'm not really worried about that. $200 is a math book in college. So please be worried about a $200 scholarship application. Apply for it all. And then the other source of funding that we just kind of forget about are employer sources. So students, if you maybe have a part-time job, that employer could have scholarship opportunities available to you. A lot of you, I've heard, work at Chick-fil-A's and Wendy's and McDonald's and Chipotle's and Panera's and all of those type of organizations. They all have money to give. This summer, we had a student that worked at Chick-fil-A, I'm not sure which one, but worked at Chick-fil-A and received a scholarship. A scholarship check came through my office from Chick-fil-A for $2,000 simply because the student applied. And then parents, think about your employers could have scholarship opportunities for your students, or better yet, tuition remission or tuition reimbursement programs for your students. Again, guys, this is all free funding sources to help you pay for your higher education. You just have to do the research and you have to apply for them. Okay, because again, it's only going to help you lower that out-of-pocket expense, right? The FAFSA is great. Yes, we're going to do the FAFSA, but there's other money available to you outside of the FAFSA application that you have to apply for. Okay? So before we get into the FAFSA, are there any questions? Make sure you're putting them down in the chat box. And then that way I can answer those questions as soon as we talk about the FAFSA. You've heard me tonight mention a lot of times, you have to fill out the FAFSA, you have to fill out the FAFSA, you have to fill out the FAFSA. Well, why are you filling out the FAFSA? Here's a statistic for you, maybe that'll help you. The fall 2018 class left $2.6 billion in financial aid, free financial aid on the table simply because they didn't apply. Free, not loans, grants and scholarships were left on the table simply because the student didn't do their FAFSA. And a lot of students I hear say, well, my brother, he went to college 3 years ago and he didn't get anything. So I'm not going to do my FAFSA because I'm not going to get anything. That is not true. Your brother that went to school 3 years ago used different income information, different cost of attendance. Could have been a different type of merit student. Maybe you're a better student than your brother was. Just because someone wasn't awarded something doesn't mean you're not going to be able to. And then the biggest thing that I hear students say is, my parents make too much money, so I'm not going to get anything. I've been doing this a very long time. I have seen every income level imaginable, and they have all been eligible for financial aid resources. But I don't know what you are eligible for without the FAFSA on file. You have to do the FAFSA. You are going to do that FAFSA at studentaid.gov. And you're going to do that each year. The 2022-2023 FAFSA became available October 1st. So it is it's November. Sorry about that, November 4th. So the FAFSA has been available for over a month now. Students, please pay attention to this. When you go on the studentaid.gov website, you are going to see two different FAFSAs available. 2022-2023 FAFSA is for you seniors. Do not complete the 2021-2022 FAFSA. That is not for you. That is if you were in college as a full-time student right now. Only do the 22-23 FAFSA application. Now, if you want to do your FAFSA and you want to do it on your phone, you can certainly do it on your phone. There is an app called My Student Aid that I will say is extremely user-friendly. You'll download it from your app store, Play Store, whatever you guys call it, on your phone. And you can fill out your FAFSA right on your phone, because we know we want students to fill out their own FAFSA application, right? This is students' application, but they're not using their computer, they're using their phone. So you can certainly download the FAFSA, the My Student Aid app and fill out that FAFSA at any time. What are you going to need before you do the FAFSA application? You are going to need your FSA ID. The student is going to need an FSA ID, and one parent is going to need an FSA ID. The ID is made up of a username and password. It's extremely important that you do this process before you do the FAFSA application. And please know that this process is not the FAFSA. This is how you are obtaining your electronic signature for the FAFSA. So the FSA ID, username and password, is your electronic signature. The student has to have a username and password. And then the parent is also going to have a username and password. Students, when you make your username and password, you both are going to make them here at this website. When you make your username and password, and it's going to ask you for your name, your social, and your date of birth, your email address, etc. Students, do not use your high school email address for this, for the FAFSA, for any college application, anything that has to do with college. Do not use your high school email address, because your high school is going to cut you off from that email once you graduate, and you're going to need to get back into that email probably. So it's time to start using your other email address, your iCloud, your Yahoo, your Hotmail, your Gmail, whatever you have. Parents, when you make your username or password, it cannot be the same email address your student just used. It has to be two totally different emails, two totally different mobile phone numbers. What I just suggest students do, students, you go on this website, you make yours, username, password, you write it down in a secure location. Parent, you log out of there. Student, you go back into that exact same website. Parent, now you do the exact same process. You write yours down in a secure location. Hold on to it because you are going to need it every year you do the FAFSA. Okay. Now, we at your colleges are not allowed to have access to this information. Unfortunately, if you have issues with this, if you get stuck, if you get locked out, you're going to have to contact the Department of Education, and they'll give you their contact information on this website. I highly suggest you do this first, then you do the FAFSA. FAFSA is going to ask for a variety of different information. Here's what I suggest you gather up first before even getting into the FAFSA website. Your social security number. Students, unfortunately, you think you might know your social and you always forget it, or you're always off by one number. You have to know your social, and it has to be accurate. When you start to fill out the FAFSA and you put in the wrong social, it creates major issues, and you're going to have to redo the entire thing. So please know your social. And I give that advice to parents as well. Citizenship status is going to be asked. Marital status for the parent as of the day you're completing the FAFSA. Selective services is no longer required for federal student aid purposes for males, but it is still a federal law, so it is highly encouraged. And then for this question, level of parents' school completion. For this question, we want to know about the student's biological parents. If there are going to be step parents in the household, which we are going to talk about, do not answer this question about step parents. Only answer this question about biological parents. And the reason being is because we at your colleges could possibly have first generation college funding available to students. And we usually use this question on the FAFSA to query our system to find those students. So again, biological parents on this. The FAFSA application is going to ask for income information. For the 2022-2023 FAFSA, the income information that you're going to be using is 2020 federal tax return income information. Now, if you're thinking, I don't know where my tax returns are, or maybe I do, but I have no clue what I'm looking at when I'm looking at those tax returns, that's okay. The FAFSA now has an IRS data retrieval tool built into it, where what will happen is when you get to the income questions on the FAFSA, if you would like, you will be able to participate in this data retrieval tool that will take you from the FAFSA website over to the IRS website. You'll log into the IRS account, your IRS account, name, social, tax filing status, etc. And then once it finds you, you will be able to import all of your 2020 income information to from the IRS into your FAFSA. So, excuse me, so you will not have to manually enter in your income information. It is not all of your income information. It is only the information we need for financial aid purposes. You don't have to do this. However, your colleges are going to highly encourage you to do this because it's reducing the errors that you guys are making on the FAFSA, especially when it comes to income information. And it's helping us at colleges not have to collect so many documents from you to fix those errors. So again, I really do suggest you do the IRS data retrieval tool because it will help you in the long run. And it's also going to help you fill out the FAFSA faster. Fill out the FAFSA faster because that way you're not having to manually enter in the income information. Now, students, you're probably thinking, well, I don't know why I need my parent information on the FAFSA because I'm 17 or now I'm 18, so I'm independent. You're not for financial aid purposes. You have to put your parent information on the FAFSA until you can answer yes to one of the dependency questions on the FAFSA. So now we need to figure out who your parent is. Now, again, I'm asking these questions to students. So parents that are in the audience, if you don't have your student here, you need to put yourself in your student's kind of body. Answer these questions on behalf of your student, so that way you can determine who is the parent for financial aid purposes. Question 1, are your, meaning students, parents, either biological or step parents, married to each other as of the day the FAFSA is being completed? If yes, then those are the parents for financial aid purposes. If not, move on to question 2. Do the biological parents live together with the student, but maybe they're just not married? That's fine, but they both have to go on the FAFSA. If that's not your case, move on to question 3, which is the biggest question we're asked every single year. Who does the student live with more in the past 12 months? I'll say that again. What parent did the student live with more in the past 12 months? It does not go off who claimed the child on their tax return. It does not. It's who does the student live with more. I will give myself as an example. When I was in college, I was raised by a single mom. I knew my dad. I saw my biological dad every other weekend, but I lived with my mom more. So my mom was the only parent that went on the FAFSA. Even if my dad would have claimed me on his tax return, and maybe he did, I don't know. But my dad never went on the FAFSA because I lived with my mom more. Now, move on to question 4. If my mom would have remarried, my step parent must go on the FAFSA. And that is a must. If the step parent refuses to go on the FAFSA, unfortunately, there is nothing at your school that we can do. That creates a rejected FAFSA and they will not be awarded. Okay. Now, I know we have a lot of dynamic households, and I know, unfortunately, we might not fit in this 4 little kind of perfect little box that we've been given here. If you do have a situation that does not kind of fit in that box, let's talk about it, and I'll be able to help you get through figuring out who the parent is for financial aid purposes. A few other things as we wrap up here, a few tips and tricks. Parents, this is more for you because I really know you are the one filling out the FAFSA, even though your student should be. I know this might be a little bit blurry, but I've kind of given you a screenshot here of what the FAFSA looks like. You're going to see that the FAFSA here at the top starts out with all the student information first, and then it moves over to parent. Then it switches back over to student. Parents, please pay attention to this. Anytime that the FAFSA application says you or your, it means the student. Because remember, this is the student's application. This is not your application. This is the student's. So here it'll say, what is your social, your date of birth, your name, your address? That is the student's social, student's name, student's date of birth. Then when it gets over to you parents, then it'll say, what are your parents' social, your parents' last name, parents' address, etc. And this kind of sounds like common sense, but I know we do this. We all do this. We get in front of our computers and we're just hurrying up and we're trying to get this done and we see your social. So we start putting in our own social or our own last name. Please don't do that. Really pay attention when you're in the FAFSA. A few other things, a few other errors that you guys make a lot. I've already talked about the you or your. I've talked about social security numbers as well as parent information. Real estate and investments. Real estate, do not include the home you live in. If you have a second home, a rental home, a vacation home, etc., you have to include that, but do not include the home you live in. You need to use your street address and not your PO box. And the reason being is because MHEC, who awards Maryland state scholarships, cannot determine your Maryland residency with a PO box. If you put a PO box on your FAFSA, you will not be awarded any Maryland state scholarships. So please use your street address. And then I kind of give this tip, and I've kind of talked about this a little bit throughout the presentation, but I'll talk about it one last time. The FAFSA application allows you to list up to 10 different colleges on the FAFSA. Whatever college you are considering going to, you need to put them on the FAFSA because every college you put on there is going to get a copy of your FAFSA application. Let's say that you are thinking about only going to out-of-state colleges. You only list out-of-state colleges. You do your FAFSA on, I don't know, November 15th. You list all out-of-state colleges on your FAFSA. You graduate from your high school, you move to one of those out-of-state colleges, let's just say, I don't know, Florida. You go to Florida, you move into your dorm, it's July or August, and all of a sudden, something happens. You don't like it, you think the food's gross, you don't like your dorm mate, mom and dad won't send you any more money, a pandemic happens, and all of a sudden, you have to come home. And your parents say, okay, you can come home, but you're going to college. You might come to me. You might go to Salisbury. You might go to, I don't know, wherever in the state of Maryland. But guess what? You weren't considered for any Maryland state scholarships because you didn't list a Maryland school on your FAFSA by March 1st. So you just missed out on a huge pot of money because you thought you were going out of state. You never know when you may need to come home, and home may not be Chesapeake. That's okay. Home might be Loyola. Home may be Bowie. Home may be somewhere else in Maryland. But you got to list a Maryland school on there in order to be considered for Maryland state scholarships, just in case you come home. You go to Florida and you never come home because you love it so much, fantastic. But you never ever know when you may need to come home. So always list a Maryland school. Again, it could be me, it could be someone else. List a Maryland school. As we wrap up here, once you do the FAFSA, you're going to get a copy of it. It's called a student aid report, also known as a SAR. You are to take a look at it. It's in a pretty format for you. It's just a copy of the FAFSA. Everything looks fine. Great. You made an error. Go back on to studentaid.gov and fix the error. There's nothing else that you need to do. Your schools will get a copy of your FAFSA. Now, please, seniors, know this. If you fill out your FAFSA tomorrow, you will not hear from us by Monday. We process fast, but we don't process that fast. We're still trying to get through 21, 22. So you got to give us some time to get to 22, 23. So do your FAFSA, check it off your to-do list, and then your schools will reach out to you. Now, your school may say to you, hey, we need some additional documents from you. It does not mean you did anything wrong. It doesn't mean that you're not eligible. It just simply means that we have to verify what you put on your FAFSA is correct. If you do the IRS data retrieval, we probably won't ask you for anything, or we might not ask you for that much. So try to do the IRS data retrieval so you don't have to turn in so many documents to your school. Now, special circumstances. Remember, I told you you had to use 2020 income information on the FAFSA. Lots happened since we did our 2020 tax returns, right? Maybe we had a death in the family. Maybe we lost our job. Maybe we had a large medical expense happen, something out of our control. That's called a special circumstance. Now, what you have to do is you have to fill out the FAFSA still as it's asking, with the 2020 income, with the number of family members, with the parents' marital status, whatever it is. And then you must contact each college and tell them about your special circumstance. Every college treats special circumstances differently. So, for example, I may look at your FAFSA to make changes because maybe dad lost his job, but your next college may not. So you have to talk to each one of them about your special circumstance to see what they can do for you. Now, if you're thinking there's no way I can do this FAFSA by myself, or maybe you've already done it and you just want us to kind of look at it, we can do that for you. We're offering virtual FAFSA appointments where if you email our financial aid office, we can set you up with an appointment. Or again, if you just want us to look at your FAFSA, we can kind of do that over email. And we'll guide you through Zoom, kind of through the computer. You're going to be filling out your own FAFSA, but we're going to be right there on the other side of that screen, kind of guiding you along and making sure that you're answering the questions correctly. Or if you maybe, again, just have some questions before you do it, we can certainly guide you along there too. We do ask you to have your FSA ID done for the student and the parent before making an appointment. If you would like to meet with me virtually, you can email me, or again, if you have any questions at any time, you can email me at lshahan@chesapeake.edu. Again, my name is Laura Shahan. I am the Assistant Director of Financial Aid at Chesapeake College, and I am more than happy to help any student, no matter if they're attending Chesapeake or not, help you get through this financial aid process. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to open it up. If we have any answers, questions in the chat, or if anybody wants to ask any questions, that now is the time to do so. Let me see.
And First Lady Jill Biden have a home.
All right, so we do have some questions.
We had a question earlier about if delegate and senatorial scholarships applications were one or two different applications. I haven't seen questions since that one.
Okay, yep. So yeah, so as Ms. King stated, yes, they're all separate. So your senator is going to have their own application, and then each delegate is also going to have their own application.
Miss Bell, if I could just chip in for a moment. Sorry, I don't
would
have
love
my
to.
camera. I've had some technical difficulties, but I really appreciate everyone coming, and I super appreciate Ms. Shahan all that she does for our kids and Chesapeake College supporting us in the way that they do. If you do have questions in the future, you can certainly email, text me. You know how to get a hold of me. In addition, I wanted to let you know that local scholarships, the senatorial and delegate and other local scholarships will be available. Haven't had any local ones yet, but they will be coming soon. Pretty heavy in February and March, but they will be on Navient. There is a scholarship tab on Navient, and you just click on the tab and it will list the scholarships. Please keep in mind the dates. Make sure that things are turned in a timely fashion. In addition to Navient, there will be hard copies of each scholarship in the counseling suite. And in addition to that, they will be emailed in that group email to parents and students. So if you haven't been getting my emails, please let me know. If you have, thanks for opening them. And if you have any questions at all, please let me know. I also want to thank Miss Bell, who is just a fabulous addition to our team. And she will also be available for us, which is awesome. So thank you everyone for coming. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mrs. King, for your very kind words. Everybody, I did put a link to a survey for this session in the chat. It would mean a lot to us if you could just take a few moments and fill out the survey. We like to get the feedback to share with Ms. Shahan, along with our own knowledge of what we could do better next time or what information that you need.
Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan, would you like to say anything before we go?
The only thing I'd like to say is, well, first, thank you all for coming. I hope you guys learned something today. I'm sure you did. There's tons of great information in that session. And again, if you have any questions, you have many resources and people to reach out to, so please don't hesitate. We will get you the answers that you need.
Laura, I would like to sincerely thank you on behalf of Morgan, Ms. King, myself, all of the parents and students that were here this evening. We truly appreciate everything you do to support our students and to support this process, as I know it's not an easy one as you're starting out.
It's not. So I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to help you guys anyway, in every way that I can. So good luck to everyone, and please feel free to reach out to me at any time.
And
Thanks.
we have Laura's contact information as well if you need to get hold of it from us.
Yes, absolutely.
Was there a question?
I don't think so.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I'm going to go ahead and say good night. If we will stick around, if you do have a question to ask, and I'm going to stop the recording at this time on behalf of Maryland Business Roundtable for Education. I'm Laurie Bell. Thank you for joining us all this evening.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.